My name is Jamie Talan. I organized this lecture series, and today our guest is Phillip Moffitt, who's a Buddhist meditation teacher and writer based in San Francisco Bay Area. He's taught Theravada Buddhism for 20 years and served as a guiding teacher at Spirit Rock Meditation Center. He's also penned several books, including The Four Noble Truths, Dancing with Life, Buddhist Insights for Finding Meaning and Joy in the Face of Suffering, and a book called Emotional Chaos to Clarity and Dancing with Life. And he is just an amazing spiritual advisor on many levels. And he's here today to talk about Buddhism and meditation and how we can all learn from taking the time to find a bit of Dharma, and I guess he'll explain what Dharma is. So take it away, Phillip Moffitt.
So greetings, everyone. And first of all, am I speaking loud enough that you can hear me? Nod your heads if you can hear me. Great, thank you. Yes. So I want to begin by acknowledging and recognizing. And the acknowledging is acknowledging that for those of you who are working with this condition, that this is a central part of your lives, I can't know your experience. I don't assume that I can imagine it and project it in some way. I simply don't know your experience. It's not imaginable. I think it's one of those things that has to be lived. And so I start with that. With my lack of knowing in that way, and so when I'm speaking, I'm always speaking without knowing some part of your experience in a very direct way. And then the recognizing is the amount of courage and patience and willing to be with, being asked over and over again to be with, time and time again, that is part of your experience. And that's a tough situation, and in one sense you can say, oh, it builds character and builds acceptance and la la la, and the other way it simply sucks. It's just awful, and that is the truth of your experience. And I really recognize the courage to be with the truth of your experience that way. So I bow to that, and I understand what's being asked of you, moment by moment by moment with that. So in that regard, it becomes a question of, well, what do I have to offer? And I asked Jamie this, are you really sure I have something to offer you? She was saying that she did think that the experiences around the Buddhist psychology and the Buddhist teachings would be of relevance in various ways. And so I will be taking you through some of those in hopes that it is of some use to you in that way. I have spent 30 years intensely studying Buddhist psychology and the teachings of the Buddha. And before that, I spent 12 years intensely studying a type of yoga called Raja Yoga that had a lot to do with meditation and the mind and so forth. So this has been my entire adult life interest to understand body mind in this way. And no matter what else I was doing, including being a workaholic for a number of years, I was still, even in the midst of that, the one thing I was taking time for in all of my dedication to work was this exploration. That was my one balancing act. So I have worked with a lot of people. I've done one-on-one work with individuals, of some thousands of individuals now, and people have come in with all sorts of difficulties they're dealing with, both in terms of their health, both physical health and mental health, and just terrible experiences that have happened to them in life of all kinds, just too sad to mention. So I basically use these same understandings and principles that I'm going to be talking about with you across this broad spectrum of experience, because that's what the Buddha had to offer, and therefore that's what I have to offer. And we're going to uh, uh, be starting here, and I'm going to be quite specific. But again, one thing, because I don't know your world, I might use language that's inappropriate, or I might use an example that you go, that example makes no sense whatsoever. And I apologize for that on the front end, and ask your patience with me in this, because I just, what I don't know, I literally don't know. And the one thing is, I know that I don't know. That's the one comfort I have with that, therefore we can all share that together. Now, I don't mind your kind of rolling your eyes if I say something that's completely off base. That's an appropriate response. And so we're going to be doing actually a series of meditations this morning, depending on the time and how fast it goes. There will be either 2 or 3 of them. And the Buddha starts with recognizing 3 characteristics of life. One is that everything is always changing. And it's sometimes changing in ways we like, and sometimes changing in ways we don't like. But we cannot, in the end, control. Change is going to happen no matter what we do. And that is the nature of being born in this.
So too hard. And this guy's going to call me on this phone here for the TFF. Uh-oh.
I don't know. Okay, I'm going on, but I don't know if you all could hear that or not, but we're back now. So change is going to happen no matter what, and that's called anicca, A-N-I-C-C-A, in Buddhism. And this is intellectually we can all agree with this. It's not hard to agree with. This very second, all of these changes are happening in your body, every cell of your body, and so forth. But as an insight, and in this Theravada form of Buddhism, it's referred to as insight practice, vipassana, meaning seeing through the surface level to the way things are, the nature of things. And that it is very liberating to realize the truth of anicca. And one of the things that dealing with the condition you're dealing with, that just noticing that and noticing the truth of anicca can be its own form of comfort. But that's to be explored. We don't have in our short time today to go into detail about that. But if you start noticing it for yourself, is that true or not true? And so on and so forth, you may well come to a kind of different relationship in your mind to experience, where experience is not, the heaviness of experience is lightened, and it's not, experience isn't so heavy anymore. It has a very different textural feeling to it that's much easier to live with. The second characteristic that the Buddha talked about is dukkha, D-U-K-K-A-H. So that with dukkha, it means there's a stress to existence, there's a tension to existence, that because things are always changing, you can never say, well, I've did a good job of brushing my teeth, don't have to deal with that anymore. It's like just the regularness, the on and onness of life is a form of dukkha. The sense that you never can get it right and it stays right. Physical and emotional pain are dukkha. Those are what's referred to as suffering. People think of just that narrow thing of physical or emotional pain, but literally the ongoingness of life is dukkha. That life is that there's a kind of edge of unsatisfactoriness. So like a wonderful moment goes away, that's dukkha. That we can't stay present. We're watching the sunset and we're sitting there and it's so beautiful, and we suddenly start saying, I should do this more often. Why don't I hike more? That's dukkha. The fact that we can't even stay present for the experiences that we really love, and that we go past in future is dukkha. that we have a situation that's mixed, and what we notice is the things we don't like about a situation that's mixed, whereas we're not going to do anything about them. It's just a mixed situation. So we'd be much more, have a richer experience of opening to the positive, at least as much as the negative. But yet we have this perception bias, it's referred to, towards the negative. That's dukkha. It's the nature of the mind and its relationship to this realm. And through practice, through understanding, through insight, we start to change that relationship, that reactive mind relationship to our experience. And our experience becomes less filled with dukkha, less dissatisfaction, less stress, less reactivity, less seeing the negative, less moving away from the moment, but more staying with the moment, and so forth. And so that's anicca and dukkha, and then this experience of thinking that things are self that are not self, that and that's called anatta, A-N-A-T-T-A, and this not self is a recognizing that we think that how we feel in this moment is permanent, that how we feel about something, we always feel that way about it. But even a casual reflection on our experience, how we feel about things change all the time. We've got all of these different moods. We've got this, what I call the inner committee, all these different aspects of ourselves that have very different views about. Sometimes we like this person, and sometimes this person just gets on our nerves, and so forth. So there's not this permanent fixed you that's going around inside there having experience. There's all of these different yous and all of these different ever-changing dimensions, even of that inner committee. And this is, again, very helpful because we tend to believe, particularly when there's a kind of intense suffering or a kind of intense despair, that it's always like this. How I'm feeling right now is how I will feel forever till I die. And that just does not hold up to examination. That's not the truth. It's not the truth. That's a delusion that how we feel this moment is how we're always going to feel. And there's a lot of comfort in recognizing that. Because of that negative bias I mentioned before, we tend to really contract into the difficulty of our lives. And you certainly have your difficulties that you're having to deal with. And I'm addressing the people that have this particular condition, the PCA condition, but I realize some of you are staff people working with, and I'm speaking. I'm not trying to include both here in that way. I think this is just more helpful and more comprehensible if I just stick to the one audience in that way. And I feel as though you will benefit as a staff person more if I do that than if I try to jump back and forth. So those three characteristics are the characteristics of this reality, this particular world in which we live, this realm in which we live. And in Buddhist psychology and Buddhist teachings, you often hear this reference to nature. This is the nature of things. And having insight as opposed to intellectual understanding, having insight into the nature of things can bring us real comfort so that we don't take it so personally. So to give you an example here, you have a condition that's relatively rare. And in economic terms, they would refer to you having a black swan event. It's unusual to have a black swan. There are black swans, but they're not so usual. And so therefore you have this unusual, this rare the condition you're having to deal with. If though you step back a whole nother level, what you discover is that there are all sorts of diseases and disabilities that are occurring throughout all the population of the world. There are many, many black swan events. And so from that point of view, a particular black swan event is very rare. Like your condition is rare, but having rare conditions is not rare. It happens with great frequency. And so why does that matter? Oh, because in choosing to be part of this realm, I'm choosing to be part of the nature of this realm. And this is one of the things that's in the nature of this realm. It's not so rare. It's kind of the way it is. And this is one of the phrases that my teacher, the Venerable Ajahn Sumedho, taught me, which is that knee pain is like this, having cancer is like this, that we recognize our experience, that it's the nature of the experience, rather than making it about our personalities or something we've done or any like, why me, have I been picked out? But no, to just go with the nature of the experience itself. It's like this, it's like this. And I have seen many, many people, including myself, find comfort from that, from all sorts of things, from the loss of a loved one to having a situation that can't be fixed under our current levels of technology. Another thing to say about this is that a human being is the most complex thing that we are aware of. If in manufacturing, there's something called 3 Sigma standards, so that if you're not 99.9% on every part, that you don't have flawed parts. And so your computer, your automobile, your air conditioning, all of these things actually work much better than the human body. There's fewer flaws in all of these apparatuses we have than in the human body mind. But it's why? Because it's so much more complex. So we would be rejected if we were artificial. Because it's just, human beings just have too many flaws. They have too many tendencies to break. We wouldn't put up with that in a refrigerator. We just wouldn't do it because it's just too unreliable. But this is the nature, again, that word, the nature of this realm. And so our relationship on the largest level of our heart is, oh, I am a participant in this realm. I'm a participant in this realm, and therefore I pay the price for the privilege of being part of this realm. And in paying the price, I am being a human being, and all the joy that human beings get is balanced and is in a way paid for by our willingness to endure the dukkha of this realm and the ever-changing nature of this realm. That's the price we pay. And we're paying it not just for ourselves, but so that this human ability to have reflective consciousness, to have awareness, to have love, reflective love that knows it's loving and is choosing love in the face of the pain that love is going to cost, that vulnerability. We pay so that human beings can exist, that we can be part of this universe. It's mysterious, but we are doing that together. So at any time, our particular role may not be what we would choose, but we are part of a whole. And that whole is happening, whether our life may be so constricted at this moment, but the immensity of human life is occurring. And I have found such comfort in that. I first had that realization as a child when I had difficult circumstances as a small child. But then I realized that there were other small children who were actually having a lot of happiness. And to me, it was worth being a small child with these difficulties, knowing that there were other kids that were having a much happier time of it. And that was such comfort to me. It came as an insight, just as this, first grader, second grader in that way. And I found that true throughout life. And I've said this to so many, many people through the years. And when you come to this as a feeling, it's not you start out as an intellectual thought, but then it becomes a feeling, and it becomes in the heart. And there's a kind of peace that can emerge from this. The nature of this realm is like this. And my participation is participation in holding the whole, that which is uplifting and that which is to be born. That is conscious suffering, as this wonderful woman named Helen Luke wrote about. It's conscious suffering. And conscious suffering is a necessary part of being a human being and growing and maturing, and being able to fully meet this realm as she teaches. And so then we come to the first of the three kinds of meditation. What do we do when we're kind of overwhelmed? You know, that's like it's overwhelmed with frustration or despair about the future, or our criticizing ourselves or others, or feeling sorry for ourselves. We're just overwhelmed. And the first of the kinds of meditation is a kind of collecting and unifying, I call it, which is a concentration practice. And the concentration practice can be moving away from the experience or going into the experience we're having. The one I want us to do today is going away from the experience. So you're having, imagine that you're having despair in your mind, and it's just like, this is never ending. This is only going to get worse. And you're just, it's just going on and on. It's called papancha in Buddhism. This mind getting off on something, it just keeps association, one bad thought after another. It just goes on and on and on. It's an explosion of the momentum of one thought to lead to another thought, none of which are helpful to us. They're just making us more miserable. They're just pulling us deeper into this contraction and all. So one way to break that is through concentration practice. And I call it collecting and unifying the mind, because there's a stage of concentration practice or absorption practice or samadhi, you may have heard that word, practice, that's called neighborhood concentration or access concentration. And that's where the mind gets collected enough, but it's not totally absorbed in an object so that you're just totally isolated. It's difficult to develop the ability to get totally isolated. And the way you do that is by getting to this level of neighborhood concentration. So in total absorption, there you don't have a lot of thoughts. You don't have, your body may disappear even. And that, again, that can be really comforting in its own way. And some of you may have already experienced that at times with this or something else in your life. So, but with access or neighborhood concentration, you're staying with an object good enough so that you're more or less there all the time, although you're wandering off a lot. And so the most common object we use is the breath. So we're going to be doing the breath, and that's the most common one to use. We will do that. But we're going to start with what's called touch point meditation. I'm going to ask you to, in a moment, to close your eyes and then to notice the three parts of your body, three different experiences of your body, and then to go for the breath just for a moment or so, and then we'll cycle back to these touch points. One is going to be the feet, the bottoms of your feet or the sides of your feet, just something about your feet. If you have on socks, the feeling of the socks touching. It's the felt sense. It's how you know you have feet. You think about your foot. Is it there? Oh, yeah, my foot is there. How do I know my foot is there? There's some sensation. And that sensation really helps us start to collect the mind and get us away from our thoughts that are driving us, into despair. And then we'll do the same with the pelvic area, the sit bones, or there in your butt, or just the feeling of the butt itself. And then the third will be your hands, and then the feeling of your hands. How do you know you have hands? And then again, the felt sense, and then the breath. And then after some point, and this is all going to be quite brief, we will then go to just staying with the breath. But I wanted you to know touch point meditation, because when I'm really agitated, my mind is not willing to settle in on one object yet. But if I give my mind something to do, because it's got all this energy and it's whirling around, if I move from this sensation to this new sensation to another sensation and back again and back again and back again, then that gets me calmed down. And from that, to be able to be with the breath. And again, I've taught this over and over again, and it's a common meditation within the Buddhist tradition, this touch point meditation. You can have more than 3, but I would encourage you to start out with 3 and see. So closing your eyes, if you're comfortable closing your eyes, if for some reason that doesn't work for you, it might make you dizzy or uneasy or something, look down at a 45-degree angle just so that you're just not distracted by the visual field. So just notice that you are present, that you do have attention, this capacity of attention. And you can direct attention. We forget that when we're panicking or despairing or hurting or frustrated. We forget that we have a choice of directing attention. So we have to remember, reconnect this capacity of directing attention. So you're present in this moment. You're recognizing that you have choice, that you can direct attention. There's all of these different stimuli occurring within your field, but you can direct your attention to one particular sensation, not even a major one. And in that context, direct attention to the feet. You might notice the temperature of the feet. Like my feet are a little cold. Didn't know that till I directed the attention. So cold feels like this. I know that my feet because they're cold. You might feel the touch of your socks or the touch of the floor. Or that the toes are relaxed, or the toes are tense. That feeling, the direct sensation of feet, and you go, well, I don't know. You may say, well, I'm not feeling any of that. I'm not feeling anything. But you still know you have feet. So then the knowing itself, oh, this is feet, that becomes how you're knowing it. And it's not like a test. So you just quickly notice. We're going really slow this first round. After that, we're going to go quite rapidly. Just getting used to that. Sometimes, if nothing else, you can move your toes a little. Bones, you can feel the bones in the feet. Oh, that's how I know I have feet. Bones. The connection of the feet to the legs, the ankles and the legs, that might be how you know. And now, moving your attention to your pelvic area, the buttocks, the sit bones, whatever you feel in the pelvis. The pelvis may feel heavy or light. There may be pressure, vibration. Now move the attention to your hands. Again, it could be warm or cool. You could feel the flesh of the hands, what the hands are touching, how it feels for hand to be touching. your thigh or the chair arm. It may be a pulsation in the hands, or how quiet the hands are, or a tension in the thumbs, or relaxation in the rest of the fingers. And now move the attention to the breath. Just a single moment of the breath here. You can notice the inhale or the exhale or both. You can notice that the breath is shallow or long or fast. Not having a preference for what you notice, but just noticing that you're directing attention and being interested in what you experience. And now back to the feet, directing attention. Just quickly notice something about the feet. And it's okay if you don't. Moving on to the buttocks and the pelvis again. To the hands. And to the breath. And once again, back to the feet. Now the pelvis and buttocks. Hands. Breath. Last time, feet. Pelvis. Hands. And the breath. Now stay with the breath. You can focus on the breath by feeling it in the belly as it rises and falls. Or in the chest. Or in the nostrils, the in and out. In like a wave coming to shore. Out like a wave leaving the shore with the exhale. The breath isn't supposed to be any particular way. It can be very shallow, hardly able to feel it, more a vibration than actually movement, possibly for you, or it can be very strong and deep. So sometimes it's hard to recognize what is breath. Breath can be felt as pulsation, as vibration, as pressure release, as wave, as movement, tingling. You may have one sensation and then experiencing it through another sensation. Just staying with breath. I'm going to ring the bell to end the end of our meditation, and I'll ring it 3 times. So at the first hearing, the first bell, just acknowledge transition, that you're now going to be moving your attention to another object. And just be with, oh, I was with the breath. So acknowledge your experience. And then the second hearing of the bell, you say to yourself that you wish to keep your attention on this new experience of bell. And then with the third bell, just that you want to keep your attention. You want to be able to have the choice of staying present, of knowing you have choice to stay present. So let each bell prompt you. The first bell is just this, oh, I've been with an experience. The second one is change is coming. The third is that you wish to be present for change. So in this particular type of meditation, and thank you for doing it with me, trusting me enough to do this, we actually are sheltering the mind because we're directing where it goes. And I'd like to just take a couple of moments to hear what that was like for 1 or 2 or 3 of you. So how did that, was it a struggle? Was it interesting, fun? Jamie, you want to start us?
Well, I was very relaxed, and I'm like, oh God, I hope I don't fall asleep here. That, but it was, I was listening to the roosters in the background and then getting back to my feet, and, just like very calming and chilling, and it was nice. Anybody else have any experiences? You want to raise your hand, and I'll just or anybody. Oh, Jerry, you want to mute yourself? There you go.
I found it very relaxing. I really liked that. I think I should do that every day at noon. It was very nice.
Very wise.
Yeah, I really liked that. Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry. Anybody else?
Bob had his hand up.
Bob, let's see. Okay. Go ahead, Bob. Your speaker is not up. You're unmuted, but your speaker is not up. Nope. If you'd like to just text something in the box, you can do that as well. On the side, it says chat. I'm going to just say hi to you there. And you can, if you have a question or you want to share what you were thinking, you can just type it in there and I'll read it for you. And meanwhile, does anybody else have anything to share? Norm? Leslie.
Relaxing.
Go ahead, Leslie, anything?
I thought it was relaxing and good. I'd like it again.
So you can see how this would shelter your mind. It would give you something to do. The touch point really kind of gets you, because your mind has to stay present. It keeps it filled up so you don't have time to do other things. And then once you've got the mind a bit calm, then you can really stay with one object and get deeper and deeper relaxed.
And it also, I think it takes you out of your disease state, or any state, really.
Yes, yes. I taught in a prison for 4 years, once a week. And one of the amazing things that would happen in this prison program, there would come times when none of us were behind bars. It was like amazing. It was the immediate environment just went away. Although we were all there in the room, we were super present in the room. But the conditions weren't defined by their physicality. It was a whole different thing. It was just marvelous, and they would be so amazed, the inmates, that this was possible in that environment. And that's the power of meditation. So if anyone wants to speak that didn't get the chance, hold up your hand here. Well, try again, Bob. Now, you had it for a while and then it went away. I don't know. Try muting and unmuting again.
I thought I just heard something. It's actually your speaker, because you are unmuted.
Yeah.
Is anybody around to help you figure that out? Anybody else have anything? The Cosgroves?
Well,
Kathy?
so
Jen?
So I'm going to move on then to the second kind of meditation, which is mindfulness meditation. Mindfulness meditation is very popular right now in our society. It's been used in what's called secular terms in the last 30 years. And that has made it more and more well known, because it's been used in a wider and wider range of activities. It's the first. Mindfulness is part of the Theravada Buddhist tradition more than any other part of the school of Buddhism. And the way it's gone into the secular world is through what was taught on the meditation retreats that we teach. The people that carry it into the secular world learned it on these retreats, these silent meditation retreats that can be anything from a weekend or even a day long up to many months of total silence, sitting and walking meditation. And you might find that you actually would like to do some sitting and walking meditation. And there's lots of material online for that. And there's a great place to go called Dharma Seed. You might, Jamie, get that out to people. And then my own site, dharmawisdom.org is another resource. I have lots of articles and lessons and all of this for that. So with insight meditation, you first get a little bit of calming the mind like we just did, and then you are learning to be with your experience without objecting to it. So if it's painful, the pain is unpleasant, and you recognize the unpleasantness, but you're more interested in how it's affecting you than you are its unpleasantness. So you're not defined by what's happening. It's only characterizing the moment. So physical pain or mental pain or inability to do something is characterizing the moment, but it's not defining you. And I refer to it as being a participant observer. It's definitely happening to you, but your observer capacity is stronger than you're identifying with it. Although you're still taking responsibility for it. That'd be like if you start to pick up something that's hot You feel the heat, you don't pick it up. That would be silly. But you also feel, oh, that's heat. And you just watch the mind, how it reacts to it. And this can be very useful when we're in frustrating situations, is that we start to see how our mind creates an extra level of suffering, because it's bad enough that we have the experience. But then if we go on complaining about the experience, rejecting it in some way, not wanting to be there, wanting it to be otherwise, we actually double down the unpleasantness. And so we learn to just be, not being able to communicate feels like this, like with Bob right now and his not being able to get it over. So the mindfulness would just be aware that, well, I'm wanting to be able to share my experience and I cannot. So without the mindfulness, you can go, oh, it happens over and over again that I can't share my experience. This reminds me of my childhood, back to this papancha mind. But with mindfulness, we go, oh, look at the mind. When it feels frustrated, it wants to make a story about it. It wants to make it a whole narrative of a history or something. But no, right now, I can't get my computer volume to work. That's my experience, and it's unpleasant because it's frustrating. But that's not all of my experience. I can feel my breath. I can feel my body. And again, you learn to, that word titrate, where you balance out your experience. You don't let your experience become a tunnel vision of an experience, which is just the unpleasant, where you contract and you're nothing but that unpleasantness. So that's the value of mindfulness. And then it's through mindfulness that we see the three characteristics that I mentioned earlier. We see the truth of change. And we have an insight about it, meaning that, oh, the way I've been living was, I thought things were fixed in a way they're not. And, oh, so life feels lighter. It doesn't feel so heavy. And feelings of love and my wholesomeness cultivations become more important, because everything has a certain lightness of being. And therefore, those values really stand out even more. And then the characteristic of dukkha. Yeah, this is dukkha. Dukkha's like this. Knee pain's like this. Not being able to get my volume on my computer is like this. And it's not a me. It's just a moment's experience in the mind. And moments of experience in the mind come and go, particularly if we don't hold on to them. If we keep bringing them back up, then they stick around a lot longer. Eventually, they go no matter what. And we may think we're only thinking about one thing constantly, but in fact, we're having these little moments in between where we're going, what am I going to have for lunch? Or what am I going to have for dinner? Even though we think we're not having those at all, that we're just having this one thought over and over and over again, it's actually not true. But you have to learn to watch to see that. And it's very reassuring to see that the mind's never as trapped as it appears as it is. Because in our belief of that, we get carried away. We get blind to the truth of the experience. And mindfulness brings an antidote to that. Mindfulness is being present with our experience without objecting to it in the moment. It is not an abandonment of wisdom. So if it's something that's unpleasant and we can change it, we change it. If it's something that's pleasant, we know not to try to keep it, try to grab hold of it, because that doesn't work either. So we become much more skilled at the pleasant and the unpleasant. It's very, very useful in that way. So we're going to go back into the meditation. If you'll close your eyes. Come back to the breath again. We're not going to do the touch point first. We're just going straight to the breath. And this time, as we come to the breath, see if you can notice the beginning of the inhale. It requires a bit more acuteness of mind. So if our mind's really agitated, we wouldn't do this. But we are all pretty calm from what we've already done. And then see if you can notice the beginning of the exhale. Usually we get to the exhale or the inhale once it's already begun. So this is just an exercise to get us more acutely focused since we have short time. Now see if you can notice the changeover. When does the inhale end and the exhale begin? What does that feel like? Sometimes there's a little stoppage there. And now look at the exhale ending and the inhale beginning. Again, there can be a little pause between the two, or maybe not. And again, it's like the tide on the beach. When it comes in and then it starts to recede, there's that moment there, in between moment. And now just be with one full inhale. You're just concentrating on the inhale. And whenever you join the inhale, just stay with it, just for the length of an inhale. And now do the same for an exhale, just that length. And let that go. And just be with the breath in a more loose way now. You're being with the sensations of breath. And start to notice, is it pleasant or unpleasant, this inhale? It can be neutral. It can be pleasant or unpleasant or neutral. And the exhale, is it pleasant or unpleasant or neutral? A little flavoring to the moment. This flavoring is called Vedana. It's a feeling tone of flavoring, a little pleasant or unpleasant, or very pleasant or very unpleasant. And one of the things mindfulness meditation does is shows you how powerful that is in taking over the mind. So for just a minute, see if you let loose of the breath where your mind goes, and see if where it goes has a pleasant or an unpleasant flavoring. Sometimes it's not so easy to tell. Don't worry about it. And then watch where it goes the next moment. And the next moment, always looking at pleasant and unpleasant. And let that go. Just be with the breath again for a moment. Any difference in feeling now, being with the breath? And now the bell will ring. I've been present for my experience. I value being present for experience. I have choice, and now I'm making a transition. And now a new moment is arising. And open your eyes slowly, please. So the beginning of mindfulness meditation starts with awareness of the body, which we did in the first meditation. And the body includes the breath. The second aspect of mindfulness meditation is awareness of pleasant and unpleasant. The third part of mindfulness meditation is being aware of our mind states and our emotions. And we just slightly touched on that. That's a lot to do in one short hour. And then the fourth is seeing insight about how we are with our body, how we are about pleasant and unpleasant, and how we are in relation to our mind states and our emotions. And that's the use of mindfulness. And mindfulness leads to wisdom and compassion. Compassion of the heart. So I see our time is up. I'm happy to go over a few minutes to take some comments or questions, but it's up to you.
That's great. Bob, you want to try again? No? There's a little box that I created for you on the side. It says chat, and you can type something in there if you want to share something. How's that? Anybody else want to share anything?
Or ask any question?
Or ask any questions? If somebody's on the phone, they can unchat them, unmute themselves and do that as well. Pam?
Barbara, I think you were going to say something.
Yes, Barbara.
That was weird, that second one, or that last one. A couple of days ago, I mean, I assume this was part of the disease. A couple of days ago, I was kind of, I can sit with my eyes closed and I can see things. It's like I'm watching TV sometimes. It's kind of on a grayscale, even though things move around. But I had a few days ago where everything went sort of lime green and liquid color-like kind of thing. And my brain did the same thing when we did this thing. All of a sudden you said, is it pleasant or not? And it's like I'm seeing that same lime green kind of liquid water kind of thing moving around, and it's like, I don't know if that's just part of my disease or what it is, but it was
that happens in meditation quite regularly.
I don't know why that happened before. It's never done that before, but that was like 2 days ago. So. Yeah,
so treat it as a mind moment. Sometimes they can be quite beautiful when you're seeing those colors, and there will be patterns, and that is the neurons firing in whatever way. I would say 90% of the people that do meditation have those experiences at one time or another, or quite frequently. So not to be alarmed by that, but just letting the mind settle in. So you will not contract into that. You just go, oh, this is interesting, and just let it come and go as it wants.
Thank you. Catherine, you had a comment?
Well, I just had a question. I had on the first breathing part, I kept having to bring my mind back to the center. My mind was just completely going off, and I had the concentration was good. On the second time, I could barely detect that I was breathing, and I was wondering, maybe I'm not breathing deep enough. So I was and then we concentrating on bringing the breath in. It was almost like it was forced. Then I would kind of hold my breath and push it out. And that way my mind stayed right on the breathing. So in going forward, do I concentrate on taking deeper breaths, holding them, pushing them out so that my mind will be settled into the breath? Because, you know, I'm wondering, maybe I don't breathe deep enough on a regular basis because I could barely detect my breathing.
These are regular meditation questions. So out of a group of 20 beginners, this would come up 5 times at least. And the answer is that it's your breathing. So in our tradition, however you're breathing is good enough. We're not changing that in the Theravada tradition. In my yoga tradition, we would change it. But in the Theravada tradition, you're just being with the breath, but it's fine to like hold your breath so that you can really connect to it once you take that breath. And so not so much to pushing it out, but just coming in and just letting yourself breathe out 3 or 4 times so that you have, once you get into the feeling of the breath, you can stay with it. But as you will recall, I said sometimes the breath is just tingling or pressure. It's a vibration. You can't feel it as movement. That's not unusual. So it can be harder to stay with the breath because of that. So coming back to that every once in a while and deliberately doing something to get more contact, or also doing that touch point and then coming to the breath. Sometimes that makes the breath more clear because your mind's gotten more settled. Your attention's got a spotlight, you know, that little spotlight. Attention is like putting a spotlight on something. And when we're learning to direct the spotlight at the feet and the hands and so forth, then when the spotlight turns to the breath, we're able to actually see better with it.
Thank you.
Interesting. Any other comments? Raise your hand, Pam. I see people on phone. If you want to have a question on the phone, take yourself off mute.
Leslie has raised her hand.
Leslie, I'll find you in a second. There we go. Okay. Go ahead.
Well, I have a question too. Do you have any thoughts on music when you're meditating? Tibetan bowls or other things?
If it helps you, that in terms of the calming, yes, then it's fine to do that if it helps you. We used to have this terrible radiator system that would first drive you crazy, but once you sit there day after day for months, you love the sound of that radiator. So they were going to change the radiators, and a lot of meditators were saying, no, don't fix the radiators. So, but yes, so that's fine. But for insight practice, the music is less, it can be more, that's more for calming the mind, more collecting, unifying the mind, more the samadhi, the music, not so much so for insight. Because insight, you're wanting to be kind of more present. But you can experiment with yourself. Leslie?
Oh, my story was just the dog was watching and breathing with us, relaxing. He's an old pug dog. Thinks he's a person.
Could you repeat that, Norm? I couldn't quite hear it.
Oh, I think that she was meditating with our dog here. He was just sitting here looking at us with his big eyes and breathing right along.
Uh-huh.
Do you think it's something that you can do as a caregiver patient, you know, like the couple, like every day? Do you think that's helpful?
Yes, I do, actually. I think the two of you doing it together, first of all, we're more likely to do meditation if there's somebody with us. And we also stay with it more. And staying with it, sometimes, you know, you only, like if you're being with the breath, a lot of time, like with Catherine, she would have to bring her mind back over and over again. And that's the starting over practice. And people go, oh, my meditation wasn't good because my mind kept moving away. But that doesn't mean that your practice wasn't great, because that starting over, coming back to the breath, is like building up the muscle of concentration. So, you know, if your mind wanders a lot, it wanders a lot. We take what we get when we meditate. And it does help to have somebody. And for you could take turns guiding each other a little bit, or you could listen to a few minutes of a tape together, or just simply do it together in silence for 5 minutes or 10 minutes. You don't have to meditate for a long period of time. It's more helpful to have regularity in your meditation than it is the length of time. So I personally would always choose regularity over length.
Thank you so much. And do you find that there are health benefits for meditation? I know there's a whole...
There's been a tremendous amount of research about it helping in all these different ways. The mental alertness, clarity, memorization, being able to remember, dealing with pain of various kinds, dealing with fear, all of these different advantages that come from meditation, many different meditations. And there's, of course, lots of different, there's TM meditation, there's, within the Christian tradition, there's contemplative prayer, which is contemplative prayer is the opposite of, oh Lord, won't you buy me a Mercedes-Benz? The Janis Joplin song.
That's awesome. And so your website is dharmawisdom.com or
.org.
.org?
.org.
And so if you'd like to email Phillip Moffitt, find him on dharmawisdom.org, or you can write to me and I will connect you. And it's been such a pleasure. It was wonderful. So I'm so glad it was perfect.
Good to see you, and all best.
Oh, wait, Catherine has one more. Go ahead, Kathleen.
Actually, Jamie, my name is Kathleen, or I'll go by Kathy. So if there's another one, to not get it confused with anybody else, I go by anything that starts with K. But anyway, now you're going to post this so that, because I want to go, I really enjoyed this. And I know I need it to calm me as a caregiver. So I would like to go through that again. So I just wanted to make sure that you're going to post it for us, that we can.
Yes,
I can practice. I can practice.
That's awesome. Yes,
Thank
our
you.
lectures are always posted. Our support groups are not. Our support groups are private.
Yeah.
So thank you, everybody, and thank you, Phillip Moffitt, Jennifer, for putting this together. And
bye-bye.
Thank you.
bye, everybody.
Thank you.